Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2019 career mode, episode number 64 today for the finale in Season 3 at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. It has all come down to this, a very long and hard-fought season between myself and Charles Leclerc in the Toro Rosso. We started this season off in the Red Bull racing car. We had a bit of a rift with Pierre Gasly, and the Red Bull car wasn't where I needed it to win a World Championship in Season 3, and so Helmut Marko and Christian Horner swapped the teams round. Devin Butler went from Toro Rosso to Red Bull, and I went the other way because the Toro Rosso started the season off as the better Red Bull car, and it's been that way the entire season. And ever since that switch, me and Leclerc have been just yo-yoing about from first to second in the championship there. No one else has really come that close, and now it's all come down to this, the final race of Season 3. 5 points are in it here, and despite being the third best car on paper, this car is still proving to be pretty much the best car still when it comes to actually hitting the track there. The R&D chart may say Racing Point and McLaren have taken over the mantle, but the Toro Rosso, especially last episode at Brazil, at times really felt like it was on rails. It's been a real pleasure to drive the Toro Rosso car already, depending on the circuit really. Sometimes it just feels absolutely unbeatable here, and so looking forward to this final outing in this kind of, lighter blue outfit, as it were, alongside Leclerc for this championship fight. We've already wrapped up the constructors, so no pressure there. The gloves are off. There's no team orders. There's nothing at stake for the team. It really will just be about me versus him. Let's get into it then. Let's go to qualifying for the final time this season.
Here we are at the beautiful Yas Island circuit where qualifying is about to begin. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the action. Looking at this field today, Anthony, do you think we're going to see anyone take a chance? Maybe run the hard tyres and save some of the grippier tyres for the race tomorrow?
Well, I'd be surprised in all honesty. It's only the front runners that really have the pace to get away with that. And even then, at the end of the day, it's a big risk. Track position is the most important thing, and it's rarely worth sacrificing for a slightly more optimal strategy in the race, so I doubt we're going to see anyone trying it. I have been wrong before though. We certainly do see some risky decisions every now and then, and it's a gamble that's sometimes worth taking. But if it were me in the car, I would want to be on the fastest tyre for my qualifying lap, without a doubt.
Alright, so into qualifying, before we talk about anything, we have to talk about this elephant in the room here. If you look on the bottom right, we have got quite a bit of gearbox wear going to this Grand Prix. So that is a decision I'm going to have to make of, do I stick with this gearbox for the race, or do I take a 5-place grid penalty? I'll have to see where I qualify and see where Leclerc is. Obviously, the ideal scenario would be us to qualify as high as we can, and then probably not take the engine penalty, take the track position, because of course we are 5 points ahead of Leclerc in the championship. I want to be in some sort of control of how we go about the race, and so I'd rather be ahead of Leclerc on the grid if we can be, and then basically control the race from there. But the gearbox is quite warm, so that might be a factor for us in the race weekend, or even in qualifying here. I don't know if it's going to wear out and affect the kind of speed we have at the moment in Saturday. At the moment, it didn't affect us in Q1 there. We got through nice and easily into Q2. Leclerc has gone fastest at the moment here. The car feeling pretty hooked up through the last sector. A little bit of understeer here and there, but we go through across the line into P3, and we're through into the top 10 shootout there. Myself and Leclerc, the two McLarens, only won the Red Bull, surprising there. Devin Butler knocked out then, and also on the Renault's actually not looking too quick, and the Racing Point's actually not looking that punchy this weekend like they have been in recent races. But here we go then. The night has truly settled down here at Abu Dhabi at Yas Marina. The floodlights are beaming, and it's time for the top 10 shootout. Our first time lap, it wasn't a great first sector there. We went really wide and understeered a lot in the first few turns, and the same thing here, just a bit of a lock up there. It didn't carry as much momentum as I could have done in this second sector. And the last sector, for some reason, there was just so much understeer. I don't know if the track temperatures went down and I have to readjust my driving in terms of the lines, but there just wasn't any front end grip there, so it's a horrendous lap time to start off Q3. So that's going to be a banker lap, but that's P10. Sergio Perez right now is on pole position, provisional pole. Leclerc, I believe, is in second place there, so we have got to do better to at least match Leclerc, and if not, try and also match Perez, because I want to try and go for that pole position. That'd be absolutely sweet if we could get the pole in the final race with Toro Rosso here in Season 3. At the moment, you can see getting nearly 3/10 there in the first sector alone. Purple first sector, as that's how much time I lost in the first sector. We go through the last and gaining more and more time there. We're 1.3 seconds up on that first lap, so that was really quite a horrendous first one. And across the line, and it is going to be the heralded pole position at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Absolutely awesome stuff there. Sergio Perez second place, Leclerc in third there. We steal a march on both of them, and so we're looking very pretty going to the Grand Prix. The gearbox wear, I think it was around 69% or 70 potentially going at the end of that Q3 session, so I think we're going to have to take a calculated risk of just trying to see how it goes, because a 5-place grid penalty will put us behind Leclerc, and I don't really want that, so I'm going to choose not to take a grid penalty. I'm going to go into this race starting on pole position, hopefully carry forward that winner's mindset, pole, the win, let's go for it, let's seal out this championship in the best way possible, hopefully.
So here we are, ready to go racing for one final time this year. Another season of victories, controversies and rivalries lies in our wake. And just one challenge remains here in the United Arab Emirates on a circuit that made its spectacular debut back in 2009. Welcome to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. The Marina circuit is made up of 3.4 miles of track, featuring 21 corners with 2 very long straights. DRS zones going into the heavy braking zones of both turn 8 and turn 11 offer plenty of potential for overtaking. The circuit comes with its fair share of tricky corners as well, in particular turns 15, 16 and 17, which will certainly test a driver's braking management. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Can we begin by having a chat about Charles Leclerc? As ever, the threat of unreliability is never far away, and indeed they'll be starting out of position today due to a power unit component change. So it's going to be a difficult task to move forward from there.
But on the bright side, at least those fresh components can help them maintain the power they need to come through the pack. I expect to see them take a more aggressive approach today to make up for the compromised start.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. The engineer lines up on pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Gasly, Norris, Lewis Hamilton and Ricciardo, Weber, Giovinazzi, Stroll and Max Verstappen. Vettel, Leclerc, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Daniel Kvyat and Grosjean, Hülkenberg, Russell, Valtteri Bottas and Kevin Magnussen. Raikkonen and Devon Butler starts from the back of the grid, and with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
So here we are then, centre stage at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix grid on pole position, but you would have seen there with the grid sequence, if you watched it, unfortunately for Charles Leclerc, he has incurred a 10-place grid penalty, I assume for engine changes, which is a real shame. I really wanted a straight, fair fight between myself and Leclerc. I thought we were going to get that essentially coming off Brazil, because, previously we had taken some penalties here and there, both of us, and I thought that was going to be it then for both of us, but unfortunately he had some left to take, and so in hindsight, I probably definitely could have then now taken this gearbox penalty and taken 5 places, because I still would have been ahead of Leclerc, but obviously the game does not let you decide that once you've gone to the race grid. Once you've selected go to the race and you go to this point of the game, basically you can't go back and change your mind. So I can now no longer take that gearbox penalty, so I'm going to be starting this race from pole position but with a worn gearbox, so there is a slight chance that comes back to bite us later on in the race, but Leclerc has a whopping now 12 places between, or 11 places between myself and him now to make up before he even tries to think about getting the championship, because of course he needs to make up 5 points on me. So it's all stacked in my favour, which is not, it doesn't happen a lot really. A lot of the time I'm the one fighting back, so it might be kind of nice to be in a controlling position here. So let's get into this then. Might be a bit of a less intense finale than I was kind of hoping for and thought it would be really, going from the back of qualifying, but still nonetheless it's a finale, the championship's on line, and you just never know what is going to happen in Formula 1, so let's get into this. As we now go for the final time in Season 3 here to 5 red lights for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the championship decided between myself and Leclerc is a go as the lights are out and we're underway. It's an okay start for us, but it's a great one for Sergio Perez there, who gets us down the inside into Turn 1. They're surprised at that launch for us, but as we go through into Turn 2, we can sense the downforces there. Look at that, it's a sweet as you want move to the inside of the right-hander there, flat out commitment. There was a tiny little bit of a lift because I could feel the rear end kind of getting a little bit loose, but such commitment there from us to get the job done, and fair play to Sergio Perez for leaving me the room there on the inside, and he's right up my gearbox though. The 2 McLarens looking punchy as they're now running 2 and 3 ahead of that Red Bull. Pierre Gasly, ironically my old teammate, is the one further up the grid than my current one, Leclerc, the man who I'm fighting the championship with. But as we go down the main straight then, Perez is right up my gearbox, and he's going to make a move on the outside. We've locked up a little bit as sparks have flown as we make some contact. Look at that, the two McLarens swarming me. We're pinched in there, playing a bit of ping pong as we go through the chicane, and we're down to P2 now. Perez back in the lead of this Grand Prix with a bit of paint chipped off the left-hand side there as we've been in the wars with him, and we go down the inside now to retake the lead, maybe to the inside of the next left-hander, then the outside, then the inside again as we go left and right, and we're going to get it done up into first place. But it's not over. Perez is still there. He's still on the right, but on the exit we get the power down a bit earlier than the Mexican. We get back up into first place, and we can breathe a little bit right now. As you can see there, also third place now once again, I think is Gasly, but Norris fighting very hard with Gasly for that P3, and for now Gasly's actually doing a really great job in that Red Bull to be right up there. So I don't know what it is, but he's really stepping up in this race for some reason right now. But we move into lap number 2 then, still being pressurized by Sergio Perez, so the pressure may be off a little bit with Leclerc being at least 11 places back from us right now, but the pressure is being piled on for the race win by Sergio Perez. He wants this, the final race of the season, some maybe some bragging rights going into the winter for season 4, and Perez is still giving me a real good fight. As we go into lap number 3, he's going to get a good exit off here. We're going to have to watch out for that, use the overtake mode and hot lap mode as we please to try and get away, and we do actually get away quite a fair bit there on that exit. That's actually a monster exit for us there, so really good stuff there. Pierre Gasly is the one that set the fast lap of the Grand Prix, but not for too long now. As we move on to lap number 5, we're now getting the power down. You can see we went 2 reds and then 1 purple in the last sector, so just trying to play around with the tyre wear a little bit as well, just trying to go a little bit easier when we can potentially, just to stretch these tyres. You can see there the engineer has asked me to change strategy, and that looks to be he wants to change onto a 1-stop. The default was a 2-stop, which I was surprised at actually, and he's actually asked me to change onto a 1-stop now, which I think is probably more correct, and so that's probably a good thing that I was kind of taking a little bit easy maybe when I could to protect the tyres, but also trying to get away from Perez as much as we can. But it's not exactly working here on lap number 5. Despite setting a purple last sector and purple first sector, Perez is now gaining on us with DRS there, and you can see in the minimap it's just me and him really, so we're in a 2-horse race for the race lead. We lock up, he locks up, and probably is a bit of a reactionary to me, but he's right up my chuff. He gets a pretty damn good exit there, you can see, and so he's going to get another bite of the cherry with his second DRS zone here. So we look back desperately trying to see where he's going to go. We're going to move to the inside there as we go through the little kink left-hander. We go into the hard braking zone, we lock up on the front right tire, we just about get the car slowed down, and Sergio Perez just about narrowly avoids our rear end there. So that was almost like a repeat of what Norris did to me in terms of getting it all locked up and going straight on and hitting our opponent there, but thankfully just about made it through, and Perez saw enough space on the inside to cut in there. As we move on to lap number 9 then, 4 laps later, he kept on pushing us hard, but now he's come in for his first pit stop on lap number 9, which is quite early because my engineers told me to go to lap number 12, so Perez trying to go for a massive undercut potentially. Meanwhile, this is Leclerc finally getting past one of the Racing Point cars, which is pretty decent in a straight line, but he's got about 4 or 5 cars ahead of him until he gets to me now, and of course that doesn't include the other cars that have already pit in this race. But finally this is him coming into the pit lane. This is on lap number 10, so I'm going at least 2 laps longer than Perez, 1 lap longer than Leclerc, but obviously we're not really focused on Leclerc too much because he's still, I believe, down in about P10 or P9, I would say. He's not really made too much of a move on. Obviously Abu Dhabi, you guys know from real life, is not obviously known for a great overtaking play, so it's always going to be quite difficult for Leclerc to make up positions, and that's why the kind of sting has been taken out a little bit of this finale, I would say. But I still feel a lot of pressure coming from Perez, and obviously I want to try and do the best job I can to finish out this season. So we come in then, I think honestly Perez might have us here because that was a pretty slow in lap and the car wasn't feeling too great. I was surprised my engineer wanted me to go to all the way lap 12. That just seemed a little bit stupid, so we've come in a little bit earlier than he wanted us to, and so we're on to a set of medium tyres. Theoretically, maybe apparently to the end of the Grand Prix, my engineer apparently thinks so, but I have a slight hunch it might not be. I think honestly everyone's going to do a 2-stop because yeah, you can pull off a 1-stop here, it's definitely possible, other people have, but I just don't think it's the fastest way to go about it here. As we come out now behind Pierre Gasly, who's on a set of soft tyres there, we come out behind our former teammate, which is very much surprising to me on lap number 11 here, but I guess he got an undercut because he must have pit around, I would guess, maybe lap 7 or 6 maybe on the soft tyre. So he's definitely doing a 2-stop here. We should be able to waltz past him in a straight line though, so that shouldn't be much of an issue here as we have DRS overtake mode going, and Rich Mix, of course, with this amazing Honda engine the entire season. We haven't had to worry about fuel pretty much whatsoever, apart from potentially the Italian Grand Prix. I think that was the only place we had to worry about fuel because of course you're on throttle for so long. But we're up into P3 then. Perez is in P2, and I believe it's Magnussen who is yet to pit in the Williams car. car in P1 right now. So we go through to the last corner. Yep, there is Magnus on the top left of your screen. And so Perez takes the lead of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. He's a decent 4 seconds ahead of us. So he's gained a lot of time in this pit stop window here. So the tyres were really going off for me on the soft. So now it's time to get our heads down and push as hard as we can to try and close the gap and bridge it to try and chase off that race win. We set the fast lap of the Grand Prix lap 13. So we've got the pace in this Toro Rosso. The car is feeling so much more hooked up also, I've got to say, on these medium tyres. So I think we can do it. So we're just going to push and keep going for as many laps as we can. Although I should say I would have liked to have done that, but we get a team radio call later on lap 13, and it's a bit of bad news.
You've lost access to one of the gears. We've lost one of the gears due to a fault.
So we are now missing a gear, the worn gearbox. It started off at 70% in this Grand Prix. I don't actually know what it is right now. We haven't checked it so far in this Grand Prix, but it's worn enough that we've actually we're now missing 4th gear, which is not too bad. In sector 2 coming up here, it's going to be a little bit annoying as we go through the chicane, because you definitely want to use 4th gear to try and turn the car in and keep momentum going, but we can try and kind of drive around it in 5th gear and 3rd gear, I guess. By the time we get to 2 laps later, lap 15, the gear does come back. So we were driving for 2 laps then without 1 gear, which wasn't too bad, but we definitely lost time. You can see the gap to Sergio Perez kind of stabilised. We were kind of closing up to him about half a second a lap. Really, that's how quick our car was versus him at that stage of the GP, but now it's stabilised to 2.5, so that's a bit of a shame, really. But we're now moved on towards lap number 19, then 4 laps after that gearbox issue is fixed for us there, and we got everything back. Sergio Perez has now made a 2nd pit stop in this Grand Prix, and like I suspected, I wasn't convinced this was going to be a 1-stop, really, especially if we're pitting that early from softs onto mediums, and so it looks like everyone will be doing a 2-stop. Leclerc has also pit, I think, on that previous lap as well. But now as we enter sector 3 of lap number 19, we have got our own major issues. We're going to come in on this lap potentially, and now I definitely am going to come in because we've got now a massive issue with the gearbox. You can hear the revving. It's because the gearbox is jammed and it's taking so long for the gears to change, so delayed gears down and up. So every time I downshift, it takes like 2-3 seconds for it to actually sink in and change down. The same thing with going up, and so that's revving out the engine, potentially damaging the gearbox even more. So we're going to have to be careful about that as we exit the pit lane, but we're going to come in tactically and try and hopefully the time in the pit lane is some time in the game to kind of sort this gearbox issue out. But right now, this is a big issue because obviously we've had some of these issues before in the past with the Alfa Romeo in Season 2 and Season 1, and you guys remember maybe, hopefully, how long it feels when you have this issue. You can see here, I'm just trying to exit the pit lane. I'm stuck in 2nd gear, revving the hell out of it into 3rd, 4th, desperately trying to get some speed up and momentum here. Lando Norris has passed me, so both McLarens now are ahead of me. I think Gasly's also got past me here, potentially. A whole gaggle of cars are ahead of me that I just didn't need to, or probably wouldn't have had ahead of me if it wasn't for that slow issue in Sector 3, and we've got some more cars behind me. And the thing is now, like I said, if I rev out these gears too much now, we're going to wear the gearbox out even more, so I'm having to like lift off, and I'm kind of half and half in 2 minds here, because look at that! The gearbox is absolutely shot. It is 98% worn. So I don't want to rev the gearbox out anymore, but I don't also want to slow down to like a snail's pace to drop down out the points and basically out of this championship, because Leclerc, I think, is only just there down the road, 5 places behind, but I desperately don't want to rev out the gears, so I stay in 7th gear there, and I just lose so much speed, and so everyone is coming past me. We're down to P13 in this Grand Prix. This is the finale. This is the championship decider, and it's all going wrong for us. The gearbox has absolutely caused us a massive nightmare. 98%! And we've got 8 laps to go in this Grand Prix. I don't know if the gearbox will even survive this. We're down to P13 now. I'm going as slowly as I can, but as quickly as I can as well, kind of, if you get what I mean, to try and keep up the speed, but not rev the gearbox too much to, you know, wear that out anymore, because we've got 2% left, which is just not great. But Leclerc is literally 2 places behind us. At the moment, both of us are outside the points, so if it finished like this, I would still win the championship, but you've got to think that some of these cars will be coming in for a pit stop. Yes, they are, and some of these cars will be susceptible to being overtaken by Leclerc if he's at full pelt. As we now get overtaken by Lance Stroll, we've got some more cars coming out the pit lane, so we've got so many variables, so many obstacles of cars that are going to try and overtake us whilst we're still slow. The gearbox is still jammed. You've got the Red Bull and Leclerc right up my chuff. You can see they're going wide because the line I have to take now, we're going in a higher gear is just not that great. So I'm losing time. You can see there's some battling up ahead, which is going to maybe cause some issues as well in terms of traffic, even if I can gain some speed. But you can see here, having to go slowly down the straight, not to rev out the gearbox anymore, means Leclerc is past us. For the first time in this race, he is ahead of us in this Grand Prix. And I can't do anything. I just have to sit here and take it, because if I rev it too much, we're gonna break the gearbox, and then there's no hope. Then it's basically all in the hands of Leclerc, and he's right on the edge of points here. So this is very bad news. But as we move on to lap number 21, then halfway through the lap, as we get overtaken by Kvyat, I think the gearbox might be back. Yes, it is. Yes, the gearbox is back. Thank the Lord. Okay, we can do something from here. Lap number 21, we've got 7 laps left. Leclerc is 4 positions or so ahead of us. We can do something with this, but right now, the gearbox is still 98% worn. So I have to try and gain enough speed and build the momentum back up and try and learn how to drive without revving the gears out too much. Every downshift I do, I have to brake for about 5 seconds, then downshift. Every upshift has to be an early one. It has to be a short shift, essentially, because otherwise I feel like this gearbox will pop before the end of the Grand Prix. And all the while, I'm having to hope that I can gain enough speed to overtake some of these cars. So right now, this race has just turned into very much almost 2014 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix vibes for me. Nico Rosberg, when he had that issue with his engine and couldn't do anything in the championship fight against Lewis Hamilton. I feel like that right now. I can't really do too much because I'm trying to gain some speed, but I have to, every single corner, I have to be conscious about my gears. And so whilst concentrating on that, I'm losing speed, because if I'm concentrating too much on if I'm upshifting or downshifting in time, I'm just losing speed in terms of not concentrating on my lines or whatever. We get the move done on Kvyat though, so that's pretty decent. The car obviously is still pretty quick, even if I'm driving it so tentatively. I basically almost got my pinkies out, just driving the car like that as I'm focusing on just trying to tread on eggshells to get this car to the end of the Grand Prix. But at the moment now, Leclerc is into P10. He's in the points-paying positions now of this Grand Prix. It's only 1 point right now. Remember, he needs to gain more than 5 to win the World Championship, but he has got 1 right now. He needs to overtake maybe 2 more cars, 3 more cars, and he's got it, and the car should have the pace for it. We're going to send one down the inside of Lance Stroll and get up into P12 and just about slow down the car somehow, despite having to go slower on the gear changes. And so we're up into P12, chasing after Devin Butler. Ironically, the man who was Leclerc's teammate and the man I replace is the man who is in between myself and Leclerc and stopping my hopes maybe of re-overtaking. But here we go now, lap 23. Can we shoot one round the outside there? It's fine margins, but we're going to try and make it work. It's a massive bit of a lock-up and a brake shake there by Ricciardo to Leclerc, and so Leclerc has to stick behind the Ferrari, and so we're sniffing around the back end of Leclerc now, and for the first time since the gearbox issue, I'm feeling a bit more comfy, maybe. You know, he's got 1 car ahead of him yet, but there's no more ahead of him. That is the only car that is ahead of him now, so surely we're still safe here. So we're going to try and go for a massive move on Ricciardo there, really sending it on the man who sends it usually, and somehow the car is actually still working pretty damn well, despite me having to drive like this on eggshells with the gear shifts. We're up into P10 now. Leclerc is P9, so in theory he's only got 1 point on us, of course, because he gets 2 for P9. I get 1 for 10, so that's decent. We're doing enough. We're doing enough to just about keep this championship in check here, but this has been so much more stress than I ever needed in the finale. We're fighting for the race win, for goodness sake, and now we're worried about DNFing out the Grand Prix and bringing this car home. We've got 3 laps left after this one, on lap 25, but you can see the gearbox is now on 100% worn. How am I still driving? I didn't even know this was possible. I thought as soon as it got to 100%, that's when it's meant to go bang. It's meant to, you know, explode. So I don't know what on earth's happening here. I'm somehow performing some sort of voodoo magic miracle right now on F1 2019 and driving around with a 100% worn gearbox here. Surely not. I can't go to the end like this. I'm going to have to try, but you can see now I'm not even revving out 8th gear because I'm so worried about that. So Russell closes back up to us there in the Ferrari. He's going to overtake us probably because I have to go so slow here, just not to rev out the car at all there. And so the Ferrari will get me back and I'll be back out the points-paid positions. Leclerc is closing up to another car, but I don't think there's enough time for him to get more positions. So I think we should be fine, hopefully, but I'm honestly, I don't know. Yeah, you just don't know. If Leclerc gets 1 more position, he's got 4 points, I believe. So he's going to be 1 point off us in the championship. So that will still be enough there. But it's still very, very just shaky time. I don't know what to say. I'm kind of speechless right now. We're still driving on a 100% worn gearbox. I don't know what's going on here. I really don't. So I'm not going to complain about it and read in too much into it. We're still going somehow. We've got 3 laps left to go. Just trying to nurse this car home there and pray Leclerc does not get any more positions. But as we enter the final corner, the gearbox goes and snaps. And that is it. That is our Abu Dhabi Grand Prix over. We have to retire from the Grand Prix. That is us done. But Leclerc, crucially, will not get enough positions and enough points to win the championship. And so we retired the Grand Prix. We brought back to our garage and we walk into a sea of people ecstatic because we have won the Drivers' World Championship with Toro Rosso. We've done the double with them, the drivers and the constructors there. And so forget about the race, forget about the win. It doesn't matter. None of it matters because we won our 2nd World Drivers' Championship on F1 2019 career mode. The stress of that Grand Prix cannot be expressed enough there. That was so daunting and so odd of a position to be in, knowing that the gearbox is just going and going, is going to maybe break on your car at some point, and you're fighting for a championship, and you've got that kind of thing to deal with. We've pulled it through. Thank our lucky stars that Leclerc did not get overtakes done earlier on in that race. Otherwise, that would have been us donezo for sure. We pulled it through. We've won the championship by 3 points. It's a fitting end in terms of how close it is there in the standings to how close it was. Because when we came to Toro Rosso from Red Bull, we had, 3-4 races where we came 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, just swapping positions, and we had so many up and downs with Leclerc as well throughout the entire season. It's a fitting end in terms of how close we are on points, but it's an odd one in terms of the actual race we just saw today. Gearbox issue for me, DNF, and Leclerc didn't even look like anywhere near some good points. So a very odd finale, but a unique one nonetheless, guys. And if you did enjoy it, be sure to smash the like button. And if you have enjoyed this entire Season 3, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, this is right for weekly Formula 1 content. We are double world champions now. We did it in Season 2 with Alfa Romeo, and we've now done it in Season 3 with Scuderia Toro Rosso. Doing the double with them, the drivers and the constructors. It's been a mega fight with Leclerc, but we came out on top, and so that is the end of Season 3. It is time to go to the winter break, take a breather, and then come back for Season 4.
Nice job this season. You've been performing well, and that's putting us in a strong negotiating position contract-wise. Plus, my 10%'s getting more valuable. So enjoy your break, and keep up the good work next year.